Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, April 7th, 2016. I'm Keith Tebow. On this week's show, we have details on a roundtable discussion focusing on the wants and needs of millennials in our region. Updated information on community development block grant money allocations. And we also hear about public safety issues that concern City Councilor Pam LaLiberty LeBeau. But first, let's check in with Will Richmond, the digital city editor for the Herald News, and our weekly roundtable discussion of our own concerning the issues of the week. Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm good, Keith. How's it going?
Good. A lot happening this week. Let's start, first of all, with a little bit of breaking news from this morning. There was a shooting incident on Highland Avenue in Fall River. One person was injured and taken to the hospital. At the time, non-life-threatening injuries taken to Charlton and then up to Rhode Island Hospital. Any new details that you can add?
Well, at this point, as we're taping this on Thursday afternoon, nothing has been announced yet in terms of an arrest or any suspects that are being, public assistance is being helped to locate. According to the reporter we've had out at the scene, police did surround a home on Mount Pleasant Street, which is a short distance away from the Highland Avenue home. This occurred around 12:30, 1 o'clock today. At that point, they had units in Kevlar vests, canine dogs were out there. But as they cleared the scene, no one was visibly arrested from that location or anything. So it seems there is an active search going on. And so at this point, there's more to come, I'm sure, but it seems police continue to investigate.
Now, it appears that it was a burglary. Has there been any indication on whether the occupants of the home knew this burglar, or could it have just been a random burglary attempt?
Early information that we've received indicates that it may have something to do with the January drug raid that took place in that home.
That same home? Yeah,
that same home on Highland Avenue, in which police recovered over 500 bags of heroin and about $1,500. It may have been someone looking to target that person that was arrested in January. However, our early information is that that person was no longer living at that address, so there may have been a situation of mistaken identity there.
Yeah. All right. So follow the Herald News for updates on this story as it progresses. All right, let's move to politics and political items of note here in the city of Fall River. Mayor Correa yesterday, in an article in the Herald News, talked about, again, trying to push for potential privatization of the city's trash service, saying he still wants to meet with the union sanitation workers and giving them pretty much an ultimatum that they were scheduled to meet, I believe, Friday, which is tomorrow when we're recording this, to talk about some bargaining issues around the future of sanitation service in Fall River. Anything new to add?
Yeah, actually, we have learned today that a session has been scheduled, a negotiation session has been scheduled for tomorrow. Both sides are potentially sitting down. Certainly with the case of the last session, it seemed one was scheduled and then did not happen. So this may be a case of once it's actually happening, we'll believe it at that point. But at this point, that seems to be moving forward. And then also on the trash front, the mayor's office put out notice today that a press conference will be held Tuesday morning to announce a new pay-as-you-throw enforcement program that is also going to include fines as part of this. No further details were released at this point beyond the announcement of the press conference and the purpose for why.
Now, in terms of a pay-as-you-throw fine, would that need city council approval?
That's something we're going to have to find out. The notice for the press conference just said a new enforcement program to include fines.
Okay.
No finer details have been released yet, and I think they're probably waiting for Tuesday to release that information. So what that will mean in terms of city council involvement, we'll have to find out.
In the city council chambers for quite some time, they've talked a lot about trash and they've talked a lot about windows, and both of them came up this week. The window situation came up again in terms of some of the damaged windows at the Government Center, but the Herald News had a story speaking with City Council President Sean Kadim about his thoughts that former Mayor Flanagan was involved with the installation of those 22 windows a couple of years ago that was not put out to bid. And he was, sounds like he was pretty forthcoming about his knowledge of the situation. And there's been buzz throughout the city that a lot of people knew of this, that it was actually the mayor that was part of the plan to get these windows installed. So I guess it's interesting to have it come out by Sean Kadim in this aspect, that at that time he was also city administrator.
Right. If Sean was certainly right in the mix as this was happening. It's interesting he waited until this point to sort of point the finger at former Mayor Will Flanagan and Corporation Counsel Liz Souza. Keep in mind he did run for mayor in the recall election and obviously for city council last year, and was very successful in his city council run. So curious timing. This is information people have been looking for a long time, and he's kind of withheld that to this point. So not sure what the motives are there. We've not gotten a response from Mayor Flanagan to see what he thinks about Sean Kadim's revelation here, and something tells me he might have a different story to tell, but his silence at this point, doesn't help him at this point.
Is there any type of investigatory ramifications potentially on this? I know it was sent for investigation, but we really haven't heard much about an investigation and what it might turn up.
Well, I mean, unless it was to turn up information about maybe Sean himself or something, I'm not sure what the penalties could be. Certainly right. Flanagan is out of office. Souza is no longer employed by the city. So the penalties on them, they could face penalties from the state, but in terms of how that would affect the city, it seemed to be pretty minor at this point since the main players are no longer in office. All right.
Let's switch now to some education news. The City of Fall River Public Schools Department received some encouraging news this week in that their school performance has been on the uptick, and they are moving up on the list in terms of the quality of education being provided here in Fall River. They're still, below levels where they want to be, but some good news nonetheless for city education officials.
Yeah, they certainly still have a long ways to go to rank amongst the top districts in the state, but they did make significant progress. They've moved 20 spots up the list and are no longer in that bottom 10%, which also has ramifications potentially related to the expansion of charter school seats in Fall River. Mm-hmm. At this point, charter school legislation has targeted those districts that were in the bottom 10% for expansion. So we'll see what happens there. This could put a stop on further charter school seats here, though the charter school debate is a very active one on Beacon Hill right now. So who knows where that legislation could end up in terms of what the threshold is for being allowed for expansion or increased seats going forward.
Right. But good news nonetheless for the city of Fall River in terms of public school education here. So we'll be following that as well. One final piece before we go on what's happening in the coming few days at the paper is, yes, on April 4th we had a snowstorm, and kind of hit really hard in Fall River around the middle of the day toward the end of the workday, and it caused quite a havoc with local city roads. Did the Herald News do any investigation in terms of what looked like a late response in city officials getting out there and city workers and treating the roads?
Well, really, I think this was a matter of timing and expectations. The weather reports coming in from sources including the National Weather Service were indicating about 1 to 3 inches. Many times our experience with spring snow is you get snow, it melts pretty quickly, it changes to rain, disappears pretty quickly. But this one sort of defied those expectations, kept snowing, and by the end of the day, one of the last advisories I saw from the Weather Service was an expectation of about 6 to 10 inches in the Fall River area.
Right.
So that's quite the difference from what was initially expected, and that afternoon timing of it just continuing to come down, especially around that school dismissal and right. Early evening commute times really hit hard.
Yeah, I know here at BCC, the college officially closed at 5 o'clock for the day, but just before then, the city had closed down portions of Roberson and Highland Avenue, So a lot of people who are looking to get down, say, President Avenue to get to Route 24, were actually coming down toward this part of the city and merging onto Ellsbury Street. It took me 1 hour, Will, to leave the parking lot here at BCC to get to the end of Ellsbury Street before getting on Route 24. So that was part of the issue with traffic when some of the streets were closed because of the snow. So a very interesting day nonetheless. And hopefully we're good until at least December before we see any more snow. All right, Will, what's going on at the paper this weekend?
Well, on Sunday, we're kicking off a week-long series looking at the Braga Bridge. The Friday, April 15th, is actually the 50th anniversary of when the bridge was opened. So we're spending a couple days here looking at different aspects of the bridge from back then 50 years ago to today, and the effects that the bridge and 195 through the city have had on Fall River.
I'm sure some people will also think that it's been 50 years that the bridge has still been under construction and under repair. It's been a long time under these last parts of the repair process at the bridge. All right, Will, have a great week. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
All right, you too, Keith.
We'll have more of FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some positions on the newest hot job list for the week of April 4th through April 10th. Dental assistant, job number 711-8116. RN LPN, job number 713-0967. Administrative assistant, job number 713-0536. Program manager, job number 706-8279. Human Services Job Coach, job number 711-2771. Building Engineer, job number 713-0898. For more information, visit frcmedianews.org or call the Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. Senator Mike Roderick sponsored a roundtable discussion to gather information from millennials to determine what they need in order to thrive as residents and workers right here in Fall River. Here's Angie Hilsman.
Fall River Mayor Jaziel Correa joined Senators Michael Rodrigues and Eric Lesser for the Millennial Engagement Initiative. Rodrigues led a quick introduction before handing the mic over to a full room of millennials who then commented on issues they wanted policy for.
What were some of the big takeaways that stuck with you today?
Education, the diversity of education. Stop teaching to the test. Stop teaching real life skills. Teach financial literacy. Teach civics. Teach these young people skills that they need to participate in the adult world. That was probably what came across strongest to me.
Many high school students, including Durfee senior Allison Pays, joined the conversation to talk about how their education was lacking.
And really the education system right now, I feel like really has let me down as a student, where I don't know how to do my taxes. I know how to write a check, but only because my stress management teacher sat down and taught me, and I thank God for her, because otherwise I wouldn't know how to write a check, which is ridiculous. I have no idea how to pay my bills. I really don't know how to do any of this because we don't have a class to teach me that.
Education specialists, including Youth Build employee Sean Connell, also criticized the education system, specifically standardized testing.
We work with kids who are out of school, who have dropped out of traditional schools, and the overwhelming reason why they're dropping out of schools is because they're sick of being tested to death. I was really happy to see the school committee a couple months ago vote on the referendum to take a moratorium on standardized testing, because it's clearly not working, right? We've been doing this for 35 years and it's not working, right? It's just not, right? So I have students who have a high school diploma, but not really, because they didn't pass MCAS. So then they have to come to Youth Build to get a GED, even though they've done 4 years in high school.
Fall River social worker Rebecca Tangway reiterated the frustration with teaching strategy, including Common Core.
Why is math becoming so difficult? I sat with a 10-year-old, and to do division, there was like 50 steps. Massachusetts is a great state. I mean, I went to school here, and now I work here, so I really just somehow want to work with you all to help you and let you know what my families and my clients are struggling with.
Correa, a millennial himself, sympathized with the points being made by his peers.
Going through school, I wasn't taught how to do my taxes. I wasn't taught how to balance a checkbook in the school, in today's world. And that's something that a lot of people need to understand. Bill pay online. That's something totally different that a lot of people today are facing. So a lot of the financial literacy piece, yeah, I absolutely could relate to.
Connell echoed the hope brought about by the conference.
I mean, I really kind of felt there was so many people who spoke so well, was so articulately stated what we're facing. And if you notice, there was a lot of unity between our issues. So I feel like as more young people kind of come together and unite on these issues, they have to listen to us.
All registered attendees will receive notes from the roundtable as to hold the state politicians accountable. To add to the conversation, visit Senator Eric Lesser or Mayor Jaziel Correa on Facebook or follow #MassMillennials.
For FRC Media News, I'm Angie Hilsman.
Police and fire have been using the same apparatus for the past 2 decades. Executive Director and CFO of the city's Community Development Agency, Michael Dion, gives us details about how new equipment will be financed in the near future.
Police and fire apparatus, what's happening with that in terms of CBG money?
Well, there's a program that the federal government offers. It's called a Section 108 Loan Guarantee Program. And what it allows you to do is to borrow a large sum of money and allows you to use your annual Community Development Block Grant entitlement funding to pay back that loan with principal and interest. It's a low interest loan. It's tied to what they call LIBOR, the London Interbank offering rate. Which is a very low rate. Right now it's about 1.1%. What we do is we amortize the loan over 20 years. So what we're looking to do now is at the next city council meeting, we will be going with our application for that loan guarantee. We're looking to borrow $4.9 million. And with that money, we've sat down with the fire department and came up with a list of equipment that's needed. We will be buying 3 fire pumper trucks, 2 ladder trucks, and what we've done is we've staggered this equipment out over a 3 to 4 year period. We did this about 20 years ago and replaced their fleet of trucks 20 years ago. It's a great program. It's a way for the city to purchase equipment at no cost to the taxpayers of the city. None of this money is coming out of the city budget. It will all be paid back by the Community Development Agency.
Cost to replace police and fire apparatus with the $4.9 million CDA generated loan must be approved by the City Council. One councilor who gives a thumbs up is Pam LaLiberty LeBeau. In this report with Donna Mata.
Coming up, we have the King Philip Mill. We'll be at the South End Neighborhood Association talking about not just the King Philip Mill, but all of the mills. What I've learned was that the city has over 50 mills, and once you start driving around and really looking, you notice how many we have, but we have no active database for our mills. We don't know who owns them, or at least at a glance without doing some digging, who owns them, who runs them, what's inside them, are they up to code, have they had their inspections, anything like that. So I took the initiative to work on that as part of the Public Safety Committee, and I have a few great folks helping me with that. And then we've had just a big meeting the other day on the drug epidemic in our city, and that is something we're going to be doing quarterly, just because it's so big, and honestly we could have gone for hours talking about all of the different services our city does provide, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised and pleased at how many services our city provides, but at the same time disappointed at what other communities aren't providing. So it feels like everyone's coming to Fall River. We are paying for everyone to come to Fall River outside of our Fall River residents.
Are you talking about the drug problem? These people are coming in with drug problems, and what would you like to see happen?
I think other communities need to step up. They need to put their money from their budgets and have services available in their communities.
More so than just sending them to Fall River?
Yes.
We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
So this is Duchess. She's an 8-year-old pit bull. She was surrendered here. Unfortunately, her owners couldn't take care of her anymore, but she's very timid, very sweet. She needs a nice, understanding owner who can give her a quiet environment because she's easily spooked, but she is a great dog, very sweet. and you'd be lucky to get her.
This is JJ. He's a 10-year-old male, very sweet. He loves to just hang out and sit beside you and be petted and brushed. He's very calm and he's a very good boy. You can come down and see him at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
April is Youth Violence Prevention Month. Family Service Association clinician Jeff Lima works as a counselor in the Behavioral Health Center with young people. Lima explains how to best prevent violence on a basic level.
We've worked in the middle schools. We've got a few feelers out for the high school level as well. And then we do some outreach, outpatient, I should say, groups where they come to us instead of us being in the schools.
Well, why don't you give us a little background first on how it evolves in the school system?
The way it's kind of evolved is that for the first time in, 100 years, it seems, bullying is not, people aren't waiting for it to happen. So a lot of the issues that we were putting Band-Aids on, now people are being more proactive. If a student is experiencing some sort of conflict or acting out in certain ways that are not, really very pro-social, they will get these kids together and call us, and we will get a group, a couple of clinicians in there and work every week for 8-10 weeks, however long it takes, to work with them around teaching them different skills, a different understanding of where their behaviors come from and how best to address new situations that are going to keep coming up.
This may just be a sort of question that may not be easy to answer in a sense, but what would you recommend that young people do, especially teenagers, between the hormones and the mood swings and that sort of thing? What would you advise in terms of keeping them safe within their homes?
The number one thing that I would recommend is, remember, you don't have to do this alone. There's now more than ever 1 million people to talk to. Teachers are much better trained at helping. Guidance staff, they're underpaid, but they're working outrageously hard to make sure that the kids stay safe from the minute they get on the bus to the minute they get home. There's, especially Fall River is very unique in that we have a really great working relationship with the schools. We are welcome in every school in the city. So when an issue pops up, they will say, oh, Jeff worked with this kind of person before, that would work great here. We have enough students to do a group. This agency had groups with us before. So there's much more communication for us, and that starts with these students saying things aren't working well at home, things aren't working well in school. Talk to your friends, talk to somebody you trust, get that information out there, and someone will eventually know the right people to get in touch with.
And finally, engineering students at BCC attended the third and final 2016 STEM panel discussions with local advanced manufacturing businesses executives. Michael Tomasi is president and CEO of AccuRounds. He was one of the 4 advanced manufacturing speakers.
We make shafts, pins, valves, all high-end, tight tolerance, functional components for the industries, plus several others that Megan mentioned. For example, 80% of the flu vaccine flows through shafts we make in Avon, Mass. We made the top of the Freedom Trail sign, a little spire piece on the Freedom Trail sign. We've made golf shaft manuals. We make components that go into medical machines for testing equipment. We've done work with the orthopedic industry. Very, very diverse, so very, very exciting. Advanced manufacturing is taking technology, current technologies, innovation, taking initiative, working in teams to produce products of the future. It's if you walk into my facility, I'm sure every panel's facilities these days, we just happened to put on a new addition 2 years ago. It's well lit, it's air conditioned, it's clean, it's computerized equipment, it's state of the art, it's collaboration, there's transparency, there's teamwork, there's huddles, people are sharing ideas, continuously improving.
That's all this week for FRC Media News. As a reminder, you can catch this program every Thursday and Friday at 6 p.m. You can always watch it on demand at our FRC Media and FRC Media News websites. You can also follow the news throughout the week on frcmedianews.org. That's all for FRC Media News. I'm Keith Tebow. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.